everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this class. I greatly appreciate it. I believe that we have, I think I made an announcement last week. However, there was a technical problem. I don't think we had the women of Grand River on. However, I do believe that some will be joining us tonight. So we greatly appreciate that. Welcome aboard. Tonight is actually a pretty heavy class. So bear with us. Every time we take a different course in this, whether it be philosophical, psychological, theological, spiritual, emotional. Tonight's a little bit on the heavier side, although we tend to get a lot of different opinions what's considered heavy or not in this class. Tonight's class is called House of Mirrors. Now, there was a couple that was passing a bakery, and the woman hinted to her stingy husband. She said, "Oh, it smells delicious." And his reply was, "Would you like to pass again?" So that's a cute little joke about a stingy husband. However, the application is that I do get a lot of emails for being practical, but as those on a diet will learn to appreciate the smell of the food before we eat it. It's a process, and I've got emails from people also saying that they appreciate the process. It's slow, but it's steady, and we're definitely moving forward in that. So as the quote here says from Frederick Solomon Pearls, we live in a house of mirrors and think we're looking out the windows. And we're going to dwell on that in tonight's class. So let's first give a recap, because as I believe, there probably are quite a few people that are joining us for the first time in this class, and we're already up to class 9. So just a quick recap. Class number 1 was, why are we here? And we said it's a question you got to ask yourself every single day. Why am I here in this world? Why am I here in this marriage? Why am I here in this job? Why am I here in this house? Why am I here? And Ramchal tells us is that because the objective is to be the ultimate you, to be the Adma Shalom. That's all you could be. That's all you have to be. That's all you should be. That's all you really want to be, is to be the complete you. That was what we spoke about in class 1. In class 2, we said, how do you do that? How could one small little me be the person that I'm supposed to be? And what does it mean to become the complete person? So we said that it's your intimate relationship with Torah. And we said, again, every time I think of this word, I'm blown away that more people don't know this idea that Torah is everything. We live this whole town was built on Torah. The whole world is built on Torah. And we said, what is Torah? First says from the word of hara, pregnancy. It's planting the seed inside the body, creating a living spirit. That's what Torah is to the person. It connects our brain, our spirituality, our neshama with our body. That's how we become ourselves. That was class 2. Class 3, we said, okay, what does it look like in practice? What in actuality does that look like? And we said that was called playing your part, which is defining yourself intrinsically. Like we said, when the Mishnah says who's smart, who's strong, who's wealthy, who's celebrated, all these different things are the person that's an internal barometer. When you could be yourself, that means you're being the Adma Shalom. In class 4, we spoke about how to keep that, staying connected to our bodies. We went through a lot of practical exercises and actually being grounded inside of ourselves. And then class 5, and a lot of these different classes were based on emails, questions that we got either in the class or later on people sent emails, which was called Silence Dreams, which is, so what holds us back? Like, why are we not doing this? Why are we not all being ourselves? Why are we trying to be like everybody else? We said it's fears, because children are born pure, dreaming, yearning, and then we have all these different fears about being left out, or fear of intimacy, or fear of missing out, and fear of failure and rejection. All those different fears are what hold us back from being ourselves. Class 6, we spoke about what's called living with insight. Start looking in. That class was just getting the idea about realize that your focus is outside and change it about looking in. In class 7, we went a little bit deeper. We said, are you in or are you out? Which is, we are a microcosm. We're the Olam Kadim. Everything is inside of yourself. In class 8, we spoke about what happens to a person who's living outside, called the lost self. And we spoke about where that comes from, and us as mothers, what we could do for our children about validation versus being invalidated. And then at the end, we spoke about the need for resonance to find the self, which many people say, well, I don't know who I am. I don't have a self. And we showed that, yes, many times I'm able to find the person when I say, does it resonate with you? And they go, yes or no. And that's the person, that's them. That was class 8. The agenda for tonight, for class 9, is the unfolding of the lost self, it's a continuation of the previous class, which was what happens if we're not connected inside. What's the ramification? What's the consequence? What do our lives look like if ourself is not here? Then the unhealthy negative coping skill that happens when you have the lost self. I mean, you can't just be the lost self. A person needs to cope with life. And Hashem gave us ourselves to deal with that, but when we're not tapping into that, we end up creating unhealthy negative coping skills to deal with them. We're going to speak about that. And as it relates to relationships, then we're going to give a small introduction to the psychology of relationships. And then again, the unfolding of the lost self as it relates to spirituality. Then a big thing we've spoken about all the way in the beginning of these classes about marriage. It's really, that's when we speak about the microcosm the person has inside themselves. The next step is marriage, the marital matrix, to talk about how that relates to the unfolding of the self, and how a deeper understanding of relationships can help us become ourselves. So not just the introduction of relationships, but actually a little bit deeper understanding can actually help us become ourselves. So again, as in previous classes, this class is actually a response to an email. So I like I said, I get a bunch of emails. They try to respond. People all over the world send emails. So this was a question I got. Hi, thanks for your amazing self-project lectures on Torah Anytime. Each word lifts me up since it contains so much truth. Can't wait to hear the next one. It's interesting that I recently started working on it, to feel your inner true self and connect to all around you with your neshama rather than the egoic mind. And I cut out some of those parts about what she had sent. I'm struggling with one major issue that arose because of it. I hope you'll be able to answer me. How could I connect with my spouse when I'm so conscious of my being, trying to live my life with reality, and he's always so disconnected, phone, etc.? Thanks again. I would greatly appreciate your response. So this is a very, very heavy question. I really wasn't sure if I was going to address this question per se. There's many different points and variables in this question. I want to focus on two of them, and I'm just going to be really scratching the surface over here. Like in a lot of the ideas, I really throw in a lot, and there's a lot that you can really talk about all of them, but I try to just touch on them so we can really move along, because everyone's like sending me requests. Can we be practical? Can we get there? I say, hello, this is, every step is getting us there. So one, I want to talk about what she writes, being conscious of the self in relation to others. Just that, being conscious of self. And we're going to talk about this in future classes. Just this idea, being conscious of myself, how that relates to another person, and possibly regarding that other person is disconnected themselves. And this will definitely evolve over different classes. That's one point. And the second one is specifically regarding a wife to a husband, because we're talking about a spouse over here. So that's a different dynamic. There's a different equation over here when it's a wife to a husband. So we spoke last time. This was the last class. Was the lost self, which was the va'ani, like the Navi Yechezkel says, va'ani b'tech ha'goyla. We said, what does it mean? The simple understanding is that va'ani b'tech ha'goyla was that I was amongst those in exile. And the Reb Nachman, the Svarm, they all say, no, va'ani b'tech ha'goyla. The me was lost in exile. There was no me. I'm just a shell, acting as if I'm somebody. But the real me is lost. Eviscerated. We said the person is totally emptied out, unaware of their inner world, of their inner reality, of the Olam Katan. Like we said, everything, the whole world that you experience is your own world. It's your Olam Katan. We don't experience the same world. We all could be looking at the same thing, but we're all experiencing it in our own unique ways, with our beliefs, with our eyes, with our nature, with everything. So we said, so what happens when this person how do they live their life? They're reactive. They're just living in the defense mechanism. So the self is there, but we're totally unaware of it. So the question is like this. How does such a person live their life? In other words, to explain, if we're not inhabiting our own lives, so where do we focus? So we're, and this class I'm going to be focusing on the blame. In a future class, we'll talk about different parts of focus. Here we talk about when things are not working out, so to speak, like the blame. So where does our conscious self dwell? Where is she? Where we think? What are we thinking? What are we noticing? Where are we living if we're not living inside our own self? What are we being cognizant of? So there's actually a weapon of self-destruction that we use to help ourselves cope with being the lost self. What that tool is called is projection. It's a psychological defense mechanism. What it refers to is unconsciously taking unwanted emotions or traits you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. So let's give a classic example. For this time period, we're in the 3 weeks now, which we all know that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of Sinas Chinam. Lashon Hara is the classic projection, which a person is taking something that they feel insecure about, and they're finding someone to pin it on, because that's where their conscious mind is. Their consciousness is focused outside of themselves. Now, we all know things that are bad, and we want to correct them, but where is your focus? It's not inside of yourselves, and we'll actually talk about it in greater depth in tonight's class, that we're going to show, and we spoke about it in the last class, that what's in the previous class before that, what's called the projected principle, is that that's what projection is. We see outside of ourselves what's really inside of ourselves. In this class, I'm just focusing on the negative, but we spoke about it more in general and more emotionally in the previous class and more philosophical in the class before that. But your Olam Katan is like the microcosm, which is when you see it projected on the wall, that's the macrocosm. It's not out there, it's that small little thing that the camera is projecting out there. That is ourselves. That's why we say Lashon Hara, because there's something here that's bothering ourselves and we're noticing in someone else. So for example, your sister-in-law tells you, she goes, oh, my neighbor, she has a real issue with sneas. She wears her wig long, her skirts are above her knees. Now, I don't understand why she can't simply adhere to what's right and what's wrong. Now, your sister-in-law has forgotten how she tells you her own struggle with sneas, despite her pristine outer appearance. She's using projection, attributing unacceptable thoughts and feelings onto others, denying it belongs to her, pretending she does not feel similarly. So whatever it is, we are noticing. Why are you pointing at other people's problems? It's because you're uncomfortable with those own feelings. You're just putting it onto someone else. And now you have somewhere to pin it on, because you don't live inside your own self. That is what's called projection if we're living in the lost self. So it's actually ironic. It's the inverted functioning of the essential self. The person can only see what's outside of herself, not inside of herself. So that's fascinating, because we spoke about in previous classes, like there's FOMO, fear of missing out, and we said that we live in FOMI, fear of missing in, because our whole world is inside of ourselves. Everything that happens to us is really what's inside. Like we said, we don't control anything outside of ourselves. You want to change the world, you change yourself. And that's all concentric circles. So it's interesting, because there's a Gemara Masechet Pesachim, that's on Vav and Beis. For those new to the class, I try mixing it up. Try doing some text because some people love text. Try doing a little bit less text, more pictures, because people don't like. So we mix it up a little bit. The Gemara Pesachim Vav and Beis says that when a person becomes overwhelmed, there's two different Gemaras. They both say very similar. It's on the same Amid and Gemara, the same page. It says Kol Adam Shkayis. Any person that gets angry, or a similar Gemara right there says Hamisyar, who is arrogant. But either one of those, the person is feeling overwhelmed. The wisdom is removed from her. Now, we said in the previous class that Chacham, there's a pasuk that says, a verse that says, Chacham, the smart woman, Einav is Bereishai. The eyes are in her own head. What that means to say is that when a person gets upset, when they get overwhelmed, what happens is they don't see inside anymore. That's what anger is. That's what arrogance is. You need to put down another person. You need to now vent your rage on somebody else. That's my own interpretation of that Gemara. Chacham, because what's wisdom? Wisdom is when you're inside your own your own consciousness, your own inner world, your own in reality. Not taking it out on someone else. You're living in your own world. Doesn't mean, like we said, in your own bubble. Doesn't mean not living with other people. And we spoke about that, and we will speak about that too. But it means to say that that's where we go in and say, wait a second, okay, I'm noticing I'm feeling frustrated. I notice that I'm feeling a little bit hurt. Okay, what does that mean? Having that inner dialogue. And then I could then react to other people. The person who's angry, the person who's arrogant, this person who's feeling overwhelmed, they lose that ability to go inside, and then that's it. You're punching, you're screaming, you're putting people down. Again, whether it's anger or arrogance, it's the same idea. You then fall into the land of projection, of living outside of yourself, not inside yourself, the lost self. Now, there's actually a really incredible interpretation from the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh on the Mishnah Masechtas Negoim, in the 2nd chapter in the 5th Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Kol HaNegoim Adam Raya. It's talking about the laws of nega, of tzaras, which is, let's say, in biblical times, they would people that would have a nega. He would have a nega of like some type of a leprosy on his garment or her body or her house. So so you have to have somebody to evaluate to see if it does fit the criterion for a nega or not. So the Mishnah says a person could be the evaluator, except if it's their own nega. Now that's just a simple understanding of the halacha. Now on a one level deeper, this is really saying projection. Every nega a person sees besides their own somehow, like you see this little cartoon over here. Those who spend their time looking for the faults in others usually make no time to correct their own. So like this torn teddy bear is telling the not so bad one is, see, I told you you're not perfectly made, right? So this is really classic projection. So a person will see everybody else's flaws besides their own flaws. But Baal Shem Tov says something so incredible. As classic Hasidic interpretations, they put the comma somewhere else. He reads it, Kol HaNegoim Adam Raya Chutz. There's a comma after the chutz. All the afflictions, all the negativity, all the flaws a person sees outside of herself are minigay atzmai, are from her own afflictions. What you're seeing is all projections of yourself. Incredible how the Baal Shem Tov interprets that Mishnah, saying exactly this idea. If you're seeing it, it's about you. That's what you're seeing. Similarly, there's a more well-known Gemara in Kedushin of Ein and Aleph that says, Kol HaPeisel, whoever invalidates, posel, that person themselves are invalid. And the Ein Medaber B'Shiv Chalayim, that person never talks good. Now, the text of the Vilna Gaon is B'Shiv Chalayim, which is even more fine-tuned the way we said it, because the praise of the world she'll never say, because it's about herself. The problem is inside. We're just projecting it out there. So if you're someone who's cynical and knocking, and that's all just showing who you are. And like Rabbi Yaina says, he says, Ish kefi mahalolay. He says, every man according to what he praises. When you're praising that, just know that people are getting a sneak peek into your own consciousness, into your own brain, into your own heart. They hear how you talk about things. They realize who you are as a person. What that tells us is that you leave fingerprints everywhere. When you are touching, handling something, we all know who you are. The way you talk, what you do is not reflecting on the person you're talking about. It's reflecting on you. These are your own fingerprints. Now, it's actually fascinating because in the world of psychology, we could understand that this would be conscious, subconscious. The Gemara actually brings a story that there was a slanderer who thought he came from nobility, and he was calling others slaves. And it turns out, in truth, he himself was a slave. It's incredible the depth of the spirituality of this law of projection, of the lost self, that it's actually in the spiritual domain too, not just psychologically speaking or emotionally. It's even spiritually. If you are saying negative, there must be something about you that's being shown over here. Now, there's many different applications to this, And like we said in the agenda, I want to break it up into two parts, that of relationships and that of spirituality. Rabbi says in Alei Shur and Chelik Aleph, he says that even relationships, it's fascinating, we're not really interacting with other people, but our imagined image of that person, which is often from our projections, like he says, b'tamuna hadimyonis, in the figure of our imagination, which we're just creating from ourselves. You don't know me. You're judging me. You're not judging me. It's your own image of me. And he says later on, he says that even what we like outside of ourselves, oh, she's such a great woman. Oh, he's really talented. All those different things. He says what we like is really sparks of our own selves. His words are, what gives us pleasure, it's ourselves. It's not even them. It's ourselves. And we're relating to that. Just goes to show how even our relationships are all about ourselves. It's not even about that person. And generally, it's ourselves that we're reacting to, and that's projected onto others for good or for bad. We're just focusing a little bit here on the negative, but it's for the positive too, like Rabbi says. He says, what you love is the same thing. It's your own self. I'll give an extreme example. Well, actually, before that example, just to illustrate this a little bit richer, Rav Dessler says, in Chelik Gimel, he says, even inanimate objects, this is just incredible, the depth over here. He says, by the virtue of a person investing their energies and their effort into something, she sees a part of herself in the tree, from me. That's why she's so connected to the tree. And because of that, she puts in the energy to make it beautiful, to help it grow. Her tree should look beautiful. The famous story with Reichman, after he even sold the World Financial Center, he came down to the lower Manhattan, and he saw that there was something out of place, and he got upset because it was him. He identified. So even inanimate objects, forget about people, it's me that I'm reacting to. It's my tree, my car. It's that joy is all extensions from ourselves. So this is the extreme example to illustrate this idea, just to show that when people are hurting us, a lot of it is from ourselves. This is what's called rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Pretty sophisticated name. What it is it's extreme emotional sensitivity and pain triggered by the perception that a person has been rejected or criticized by important people in their life. And this happens to all of us at some point in time. A parent, a teacher, a Rabbi, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a friend. Now, it may also be triggered by a sense of falling short, failing to meet their own high standards or others' expectations, which a lot of us have too. Dysphoria is Greek for difficult to bear. Now, so it's not that they're wimps or weak. It's that the emotional response hurts them much more than it does for people without the condition. No one likes to be rejected, criticized, or fail, but for people with RSD, these universal life experiences are much more severe than for neurotypical individuals. They're unbearable, restricting, and highly impairing. So actually what this could be compared to, I know this is going to hurt just looking at this, but that's the point of that slide, is the sunburn. You have somebody that comes over and he goes, oh, Racheli, how are you? And she taps you and she goes, ow, whoa, get out of here. She's like, what's up with you? And she's getting all, and it's caused a whole fight. It's not about Racheli. It's not the Miriam, whoever it was that came to you and touched you on the shoulder. There's a sensitivity over here that we have. We might not be aware that we have the sunburn. And again, it's an extreme example, but that's to illustrate this idea that quite often someone could hurt us and pain us, and this happens all the time. I speak to many people about these types of ideas. And could another person hurt you? Could another person make you sad? And we've spoken about this, and we will speak about this, that no, it's your own insecurity, your own vulnerability that hurts when the person says or does that thing. And that's the sunburn. Now, by the way, I didn't say this just because a few people joined, but the floor is always open. The purpose of this group I just prepare now because not everyone speaks so much, but it's to be interactive because, like we said, this is where it's Tev Shnayim Yisem and Echad. This is, I'm a feedback junkie. It's like, and the interactive part is what I feed off. Mindy, you're manning the chat. If anyone raises their hand or whatever wants to put something on the chat, most definitely, that's the objective of this thing. I'm just putting it out there. But if anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to jump in. We're crowdsourcing the knowledge. It's not about me. I'm just facilitating this group. Everyone here has knowledge to share, and I think everyone gains so much from that element. So this picture, I had to put this slide in. I love this one. This is, there's so much to talk about this one. I'm only going to touch it. Our outer relationships parallel our inner relationships. There's a well-known pasuk that everybody knows. Now, the simple translation of that pasuk is, love your friend as yourself. Now, a little bit deeper is, you love your friend as you love yourself. And this is what we've been speaking about in all these classes, that it's all about a reflection of your own. It's all based on yourself. It's more of like a statement than a command. You're going to love your friend as you love yourself. If you love yourself, then you have love to share with another person. If you don't love yourself, that's where it becomes hard to love another person. And that's a little bit what's alluded to in this picture. You see these two people with their head down, back to back, not really communicating. And you see how the inner child in both of them are craving to connect. It's just that they're not connecting with their own inner child. So therefore, they can't connect. If they would only connect with their own inner child, if they would love themselves, if there would be a kamaycha, you would be able to love the reacha. And there's so much to talk about this, and I see this, and anyone who thinks about this just a little bit could understand the truism of this statement, which actually relates to a famous Talmudic statement that I want to give a new interpretation to. The Gemara says, Mum Shabach, don't say it to your friend, which simply understood is that, look, if it's a flaw in yourself, well, why are you saying about someone else? It's like you're making a comment about her doing something wrong. Like you do the same thing, but it's like a little bit of a double standard. It's like a little bit, why would you say that? I want to interpret is that mum shabach, when there's a blemish in you, don't say it's as if it's her problem. It's you. You're just projecting it onto the other person. Don't say it's l'chavrach. Don't say it's not my problem, it's her problem. No, it's yours. Own it. That is when you reclaim the lost self. That's part one. I was just showing relationally, whether with people or even with inanimate objects, and actually our great leaders of all time, Moshe Rabbeinu, David Melech, actually they even saw themselves in sheep, not even in people. They have the same compassion. It's the same idea because it's all an extension of myself. So like Rav Dessler says, it could be a tree. It doesn't make a difference. It's all extension. I see the world as the macro of my micro. It's my olam cotton. I only live in my own world. Every person, everything that I experience is really an extension of that. Now, we'll talk a little bit as it relates to spirituality. Even in the spiritual domain, it's the same thing. Rav Dessler actually says, he says, a lot of girls, a lot of boys, a lot of people had difficulty with Yiddishkeit, with school, with the system, because of questions that they had. I know many people had many questions. And, even my wife's grandmother said, I've got a lot of shilas for the kashas for the Rabbi Shalom. A lot of people had questions. And the question is, are they good or bad? So in a simple way, the way Rav Dessler says, he says, it's how do we ask the question? If we're projecting, then we're the apikayos. Which means, say, if there's something that I'm not comfortable with myself, if my question's coming because I feel inferior, I don't feel like I'm living up to who I could be, what I could be, and I'm suddenly pointing fingers at, oh God, he's such a this, the system, that Rosh Hashiva, this principle, pointing fingers at everyone and everybody. We all know people like this in our lives. It could even be ourselves. That's the apikayos. This person is painting the world, God, others as evil. But if like Rabbi Akiva Eger was well known, he was from the biggest Torah giants of all time. He was famous for saying a phrase when he would have, everyone knows you can't answer Rabbi Akiva Eger's question. If you're answering, that means you missed the, that means you don't understand enough. That's how it's known in the yeshiva world. What word would he say when he had a question? Lo yisachisi lahaven. I didn't merit to understand. It's so important. I'm touching the surface with so many different ideas. I can't overstate what that means to say. Because we all have questions. People come and ask me questions. I have a lot of answers. I don't have all the answers. So how do you believe? Because I understand there's something beautiful out there. I'm not there yet. Lo yizachisi lahavim. I'm not projecting onto God and the world. Not related. It's a little cryptic piece. But I just want to mention it because he's really touching something very powerful. Rabbi Rucham Lubavitz, the Mir Mashgiach from pre-war Europe, in the Sefer Derech Chachma Musar, he says, when he's talking about a well-known Gemara that talks about Haman, how the Jewish people suddenly repented and they were on such a high level, like bigger than they were by Har Sinai. So he says the following words. He says, the Gemara says, Gedoyle Hasaras Tabas. It was greater when Achashverosh took off his ring and gave it to Haman. It was greater than Memches Neviim, greater than the 48 prophets than the Jewish people had. So he comes to explain, what does that mean? 48 prophets. The prophets were the greatest inspirations in the whole world that the Jewish people had. Why was it so powerful when Achashverosh took off his ring and gave it to Haman? So he says, Hainu, what that means to say is, because Shekol Gedulas and Memches Neviim, the greatness of the 48 prophets, Lo Higiu Lo Adam Ha'atzmai. He doesn't really explain himself. He says it doesn't really touch the person himself, which means, say, you have someone coming up to you and says, Chani, Devora, Shira, let me tell you, this is what it's all about. And, doesn't talk to me. So you could have so much beauty in the world, so much inspiration, but it doesn't hit the mark. It doesn't really do it for us. He says, V'zel Mavo, that's frightening. V'rak hasaras hatabas. But when Achashverosh took off his ring, Zehu ha'adam ha'atzmai. Boom, it hit the mark. The mashal I always think of is that, when it comes time for Yom Nerum, so we like to inspire ourselves. There's so many different groups that come out, especially in Yom Nerum and El Time. They give talks, and everyone generally wants to, and there's the tefillos and everything. And it's not getting it maybe by Yom Kippur and the Ne'ilah and Sober Kol Nidre, the tune. So, but when you get pulled over by police, Zehu ha'adam ha'atzmai. Ooh, you get that fear. Oh, I'm like, Hashem, I want this for Yom Kippur. It's better than all the 48 prophets. What I'm using this piece for is, again, it's a little cryptic. What he's trying to say is that you have to find the you in this story, because you could have everything out there being beautiful, and it's not going to hit it. There's still the lost self. When you hit it. When it hits the mark, it's like a little bit like we spoke in the last class, the resonance, like, whoa, I felt that. Suddenly you're noticing your emotions when the cop pulls you over. Boom. That's what we're looking for. So again, the world, even spiritually speaking, it's not about what's going on outside. It's what hits you. What gets to you, that is the person himself. Another fascinating piece, also related to the spiritual domain, about how the world is really about you. Everything that happens is about you, is from one of the well-known Hasidic from the Divrei Shalom from Brahim. And Parshas Vayigash, he says over a vart, an idea from his grandfather. Now, he says like this. He says, Hasim, what's the sign? Im hu melev nishber, oy me'atzvus chas v'shalom. He's in the middle of a piece. I just took out a piece. But a lot of times people wonder, like, in the Svarim, in all the Musar Svarim, Hasidic Svarim, they talk about a contrite heart, which is a brokenness. Like there's a song going around, I don't know, past a year or two, there's nothing as complete as a broken heart. So is it because I'm so whole that I'm broken? Meaning say it's like that's a praiseworthy attribute? Or am I depressed? Is it holy or is it unholy? Is it pure or is it impurity? Which one is it? Many people don't really know which one it is. So the Divrei Shalom Brahim from his grandfather, he says, I'll tell you a sign. How to know this? He says like this. Because if the person is coming back to who they are, if it's coming from truth and from a broken heart, meaning a broken heart means to say humility, like something like that. Hu choshev ba'atzmai. She thinks about herself. Shehu guru mikol adam, that she has a lot to work on. But v'mhu ba'atzvus. If a person's depressed, how do you know this? Hu bekas al kol ha'olam. She's angry at everybody. If someone comes to laugh from her, hu malikas amash marav noisek. So she gets angry. Why are you bothering me? It's projection. The Divrei Shalom from him the same from his grandfather. How could you know if it's coming from a holy source or unholy? Are you owning it? If you're owning it, you're a great person. You're a growing person. You're holy. But if you're projecting it onto other people, that's depression. That's from an unholy source. And that's something that person should stay away from. So the truth is that really all the contradictions, all the questions that someone has in the outside world, on some level, again, I'm sure people are going to have questions and I'm sure there's going to be follow-ups. It's from inner crookedness. And this is a well-known pasuk that Sefer Hosea ends that says, Yesharim darchei Hashem. The paths of God are straight. Tzadikim yelchubam. The righteous, they walk in it and they go peacefully. But the sinners, they stumble in that path. It's not about the path. Don't blame the road. It's your own clumsy foot that gets you stuck on that road. That is, spiritually speaking too, the world we experience is not the world. It's our own self experiencing the world. A little bit really connecting the two things about the relationships and spirituality. This is really what the class was about. This piece of the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, one of the classic Hasidic Svarim from the Sion of the Baal Shem Tov dynasty, I believe a grandson from the Baal Shem Tov. He has a thought in Parshas Lech Lecha that he says, Shemati Mimor, he says, I heard this from my teacher, the Baal Shem Tov. Shem nizdamen lira. If it happens to be that a person sees devara aveira, a sin, or a person hears something negative about another person, this is mind-blowing, get ready for this one. Yavchen sheyesh boy. A person should understand and discern that inside of him is shemetz averazu, is a piece of this sin. Sheyargish l'saken nasatzmai. The person should notice to fix this in their own selves. What? Me? What does that have to do? Because I heard that she did this? Because I saw them do this? That means something about me? Again, that's why I put this not on the relational aspect, but more on the spiritual, because it's a little hard for people to understand this. But there are many, not one, many classic stories with the Baal Shem Tov that he applied this to himself. One well-known is that he once saw someone being Machal Shabbos. He saw someone smoking at Shabbos, whatever it was, somebody Machal Shabbos. And Baal Shem Tov was wondering, where does that relate to the microcosm? Like we said, that's why I said now you understand a little bit of the background, why 2 classes ago I had to say it, which was more philosophical, to understand the concept that the way the macro works, it's all from the microcosm. So Baal Shem Tov was trying to figure out, why am I seeing somebody Machal Shabbos? Where did I ever do Chil Shabbos? And Baal Shem Tov understood. He once heard someone say something derogatory about a Talmud Chacham, about a Talmudic scholar, and he didn't say anything. Now, without getting into so much depth, a Talmud Chacham is called Shabbos, and the Gemara calls him Shabbos on some level because just like Shabbos is total presence, so too the Talmudic scholar is total presence. So he had a bechina, like it's called. He had an element of Chil Shabbos inside of himself, and that was a sign for him to repent for that. Incredible. Now, the next thought is a similar thought, but this was the title of the class. In Parshas Pikudi, the Toldos Yaakov says an explanation of a well-known Mishnah that most people have never heard such an interpretation of that Mishnah. We spoke about this Mishnah in a different context. It says, Ezeu Chacham, who's a smart person? Halay mikol adam. You learn from old people. That's a simple translation, which you can learn from every single person. Either what yet to do, what not to do. From this person, you can learn how to sew. From this person, you can learn how to be nice to people. You can learn from every single person. But says, listen to the way the Toldos Yaakov says this interpretation. Incredible. It says, al pi mashal. It says, like a parable. Hamistakel b'mara. If you're looking in the mirror, it's scary, the word. When you look into the mirror, you know what's wrong with you. You see your body size. You see your complexion. You see whatever's lacking inside of yourselves. Some people spend more time than others, but that's where you see what's wrong with you. So too, when you see the lacking in the other person, you should know it's a reflection of yourself. Wow. This I get the chills every time I come across a word like this. But this word is just says it all. Ezu Chacham, who's smart? Haloimi mikol adam. I learn from everyone when I see and telling me about myself, not about her. Why am I going to talk lashon hara about her? It's all projections of myself. I'm not even seeing her. I'm seeing myself. Wow. That's a chacham, because then I become wise, which is about my own self-knowledge from the other person. That teaches us the concept of tonight's class, that this world is all a house of mirrors. We see reflections of ourselves wherever we walk, wherever we're living. It's all a reflection of ourselves. And we're going to talk about myriad in the next class, unless as usual, I get an email and I start responding to that one. Do you love a house of mirrors or do you hate a house of mirrors? Either way, it's a reflection of you. And that's the depth of, actually, it really is illustrated. It's a cute vignette that really illustrates this idea. A curious mouse visited a carnival that was in town. There were tents that contained attractions, the likes of which he had never seen. The mouse entered one tent that was filled with thousands of mirrors in various shapes and sizes. He ran from one tent to another, fascinated by all the curious mice smiling back at him. He thought to himself, this is a wonderful place, full of so many happy mice. I will come here as often as possible. As he left the tent, he came upon another mouse. Guess what? He exclaimed. I'm not guessing anything. What do you want? The other mouse snapped back. I've just come from the most amazing place. You'll love it. What's so special about it? Asked the other mouse. Just see for yourself, replied the first mouse. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Go into that tent over there. No sooner had the second mouse entered the tent of mirrors than something startled him and began to sneer, then growl. Everywhere he turned was a face glaring back at him. Hideous, gnarly, scowling faces. What an awful place this is, he muttered to himself as he left the tent. How cruel that mouse was to send me here. The scared mouse ran from the carnival, cursing the first mouse for being so devious. Every creature he passed along the way sneered and spat in his direction. He thought, the world is filled with so much unpleasantness. Yet this wretched little mouse failed to realize that the world, like the mirrors in the tent, merely reflects back at you what you give to it. Now, I understand, and that's going to be next class. There are exceptions. We'll talk about this. I understand. I've gotten emails from people who have gone through very difficult lives. And even with that, it's a journey. We're going to explore this. I just want you to know, keep an open mind. I think we said this in the first class. Keep an open mind about the ideas. That's the benefit about class, which I love, because to a person, you can't say this to. And in the class, you're saying it to the general people. But the idea is there that, like a famous pasuk says, Kamayim lapanim lapanim. Like the water, the faces to the face, Ken leva adam la adam. As the famous quote says, smile at the world, and the world smiles back. You know, there's a song that recently was saying the words of Rabbi Shlomie that only like he could say, which is, Lo kol Yehudi kadosh. Not every Jew is holy. But kol Yehudi hu kodesh kodeshim. Because no, they're not all holy. They're all the holiest of the holy. Because he was reflecting his love that he saw smiling back at him. As the Mishnah says in Avos, Ezel Mechubed, who gets honored? Honor others. You get that back. That's the energy you're giving out to the world. You get that back to yourself. Now, this would all be remiss if I didn't say really the climax of this concept is the Ezu Kenegdai, is what the wife is to the husband. As this anniversary card says, you are my world, my ear, and I cannot see myself with anyone else but you. You're truly someone to admire. You're my reflection. Happy anniversary. I want to talk a moment about marriage. There's a well-known drasha on these words of the Chumash when it talks about the creation of man. It says, man is not good to be himself. Hashem says, I will make them an ezer connected. Now, maybe we'll talk about a different class about, well, is that second class? Am I just helping the man? It's totally not. Totally distorted. But we'll talk about that in a different class. I just want to focus on the well-known, Rashi brings the well-known Gemara that says, wait a second, I'll make for him an ezer connected, a helpmate opposite him. It sounds a little oxymoron. It's like she's helping him or she's opposite him. So on that Rashi brings from the Gemara, well, it depends. Zacha nasa ezer. If he merits, she's a helpmate. Lo zacha nasa kenegdi. If he doesn't merit, she becomes opposing him. Now, I really could take a whole class just talk about this, but like in all things, I'm really just touching the surface. Let me explain. What does that mean? What, he has bad mazel, suddenly he has someone that's going to hound him for the rest of his life. He has good mazel, suddenly he's got the perfect wife who's doing everything for him that any man could ask for. What does that mean? So the truth is that every single wife does the same exact thing. What does that mean? Aren't there great wives, not good wives? No, they all do the same exact thing. The word zacha has another interpretation, not just of merit. It comes from the root of zach, of pure. Tony Robbins, I'm sure many of you have heard about him. He is the coach of coaches in the whole world. I believe at one point I heard, which was many years ago, that he charges for an hour like $250,000. Who knows what he charges? The point is he charges a lot. If a person had an opportunity to get Tony Robbins for 10 minutes, she would do who knows what it takes, because he'll show you everything that you could do to become better. And I tell people all the time, I go, I have my own personal coach. I'd be doing who knows what, because we all limit ourselves. He's able to show you, to push you to achieve greatness. Every single wife does this to a husband. It's fascinating that the husbands will say, I could do everything right. The one thing I fail in, she points out to me. Are you serious? I'm 95%. The 5%, I'm a little bit lazy. I like reading. That you getting me on? Can't you appreciate who I am? You know what she's doing? She is reflecting to you your flaws. Simply because she is the ultimate mirror to the husband. Now, so why are some wives good wives, some wives bad wives? Why are some of them azer, some of them connected? Has nothing to do with the wife. If he's pure, he loves it. She's telling me where I need to grow. She's the ultimate life coach. Yes, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies hire people like your wife to show them where can we grow. Loi zacha. If he's not pure, he's not ready to grow. He's still running and hiding and numbing and escaping from the world he never saw himself. You suddenly show him a picture, he gets scared. It becomes kinegdai. She's just a reflection of you. Are you ready for her? She's an azer. You're not ready, she's kinegdai. A scary thought. But this is what men have to own up to, is that she's just reflecting who he is. If he's zach, she's the ultimate azer. He's not, she's connected, but it has nothing to do with her. Just reflecting back to him who he is. So, these are just some quotes that really illustrate this. When a wife has a good husband, it is easily seen on her face. Or a wife is a reflection of her husband's glory. The brighter she shines, the better you look. And everyone knows this, whether it be on the philosophical level, on an emotional level. Everyone could understand this, what this means. So, actually, you know what? I really have so much to say. I'm just wondering how much time we have. Okay, you know what? I'm going to try to go for the for the end zone. So that's what we're talking about tonight's class. We're talking about the lost self. What that happens because of that. What's called projection. And how that relates relationally with other people, that we see a problem in them. How that spiritually, when we view Hashem and the world also it depending on who we are, either ba'atzvus, blaming the world, or b'sheva is that we then see it's about ourselves. And that's the same thing in the marital relationship, and that's in every single relationship, just all the more so in marital. So I like to end off usually with a positive and a little practical. So how do we relate healthfully? So we spoke last time about this idea from the words in the Mesilas Yesharim that if you want to develop an awareness of self, we said there has to be some resonance. Like we spoke about in physics, sheyes amis. It should resonate with you. Like we said, validation. When the other person gets you, that's really the fulcrum of healthy relationships, which the truth is that, that's really what we call empathy. Empathy is this idea about the person getting you, what's called feeling felt, and the person saying, I hear you, connecting, listening, feelings, all these different things. Now, there's it actually was in this last week's parak of Pirkei Avos. The Mishnah says in Seftas Avos that one of the 48 acquisitions of Torah, which we spoke about in the second class, Torah is really a relationship with the self. If you want to be ultimately yourself, you have to have all these 48 ways of acquiring it, which all the Mefarshim, they discuss the commentaries like this is how you acquire Torah is by helping other people, like knowing your place. What does that have to do with Torah learning? And if you understand Torah, you understand, yes, because Torah is a relationship with the self. One of them is carrying the load with another person. What does it mean carrying the load with another person? So the Medrash Shmuel, which is one of the commentaries on Avos, says, Hakavana, the intent is kasher royes chaver b'tzar. When you see your friend going through a difficulty, mitzar b'tzar roy. This is a very important word that he says. His pain is with his pain. So what does it mean carrying the load with another person? So a part of that is, like we're saying, is empathy. Now, part of that, because it has a lot of depth. How does empathy work? I'll explain the question. Can we ever really know what another person is going through? What does that even mean? Empathy is defined as seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another. So like there's two common terminologies, and there's great debate even in the definitions, but the way I usually use it, and I think most people do, is a sympathy, is feeling compassion, sorrow, or pity for the hardships that another person encounters. But I'm not feeling their feeling, I'm just feeling bad for them, so I could be feeling sad that they're nervous. But empathy is putting yourself in the shoes of another. I'm actually carrying their actual emotion. That's what empathy is. However, I have a question. Is that really a possibility? Now, actually, in relationships, more often than not, it's the woman who she has that intuition. She generally is able to feel the emotion of the man who might not be able to know what emotion he's feeling and connecting with what he's feeling. And really, on some level, what it means for empathy is that it's when we experience the idea of the other person inside of ourselves. There's many different levels, either it be spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, somatically, but that's what it says im chaveroi, or the actual pain they're feeling, to feel their feeling. Or like this, you see babies especially, they take on the same emotion of the other baby. They actually experience the same mirroring of that emotion. So either we want to experientially get that, we're actually carrying the load with them, or at least visualizing that, like actually carrying the load as a partner with that person. And that's what we said, even our great leaders even did that with animals. So there's so much to say, we're really out of time, but like even the concept of empathy and sympathy, it's the self and the other in the self. But let me explain a little bit. I'm in you and you're in me. Like we said, it's really, I'm only experiencing the world that of the myself is the microcosm being projected. If I change the you and me, this is a little bit dense over here, but if I change the you and me, then the me and you also changes, which ultimately changes you. Let me explain. When I speak, I'm trying to change you. I'm not speaking to you. It's the me and you that's speaking to you. Also, I'm not speaking to you, rather to the you in me. She's the one who's changing the outer you. And that's really the depth of what the Baal Shem Tov says. Everything you see outside is really a reflection of yourself. Let me illustrate. I have a lot of people that tell me, oh, did you ever go through this? Like, you're a therapist. How do you even know what I'm going through? So I once had an experience in one of my early places that I did training was at Ocean Mental Health, and I was working with MICO, people who had chemical addictions and mentally ill. And I was giving a class on addictions, and I give a lot of groups over there. As you could see, groups are my natural environment. And one of the guys said, "Hey, Solomon, we don't mean to be disrespectful over here, but how are you giving us a group on addictions? Did you ever do this and that and this substance and so forth and so on and so forth? Like, do you know what we're going through?" So everyone's like, "Whoa, okay," like seeing where I'm going to respond. And I said, "Actually, the class I'm giving today on addictions talks about 10 characteristics of addictions." And I said, "I can relate to every single one of those." I don't remember exactly what the list was, but one of them is like, doing something impulsively, blacking out, forgetting like, wow, I can't believe I just ate that whole bag of chips or ate up that whole tub of ice cream. Doing something even though you know it's going to be harmful more than it's going to be productive. I said, I can relate to each one of those things. I might not have done the substance that you didn't have the addiction you had, but that's what it means that we can relate to another person, is being in a microcosm on some level, is the experience of you inside of myself. That's what I'm experiencing. Like sleep, we say, is the 60th of death. That's how we can know that Chil Shabbos is because the Baal Shem Tov was Mavaza, like he heard a Bizo B'Talmud Chacham. Even Mashiach, it's the experience of that part of you that's Mashiach. Or like the Paroi, you're in the Paroi. It's like we speak about in the 3 weeks, like Bilvavi Mishkan Evna, that really the Beis HaMikdash is going to be built first inside of you. Then the Beis HaMikdash of the macro is going to be built. That's how we bring Mashiach. So I was explaining to them that, neurochemically, I have a similar experience. Again, this just might not be in the substance that you use. And this is just another cute clip. Sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is, oh, I'm sorry, that sucks. And empathy is just feeling the same emotion. And that's what people really want to have. This is, again, just an empathy map, just showing that it's like thinking what they're thinking, feeling what they're feeling, what words are they saying, doing the behaviors that they're doing. It's really connecting with themselves. So let's summarize. I believe this thought from the Reb Nosson of Breslov really says it all. Because many people ask others about their life. And it could be a Rav, it could be a Rabbi, it could be a teacher, it could be a parent, it could be a counselor, it could be whatever it is. And you think that other people are going to direct your life. But listen to the words of the Kutei Lachas. It's really frightening to some extent. He says, Kizek Chal, this is the rule, he says. The path that a person wants to go, that's where they take him. And we're going to talk about, a woman had texted me, emailed me about who's the real me. And it was way too sophisticated. And we're going to get to that on future times. But the Ratzon, I believe we said in the previous class, is the primary you. Where you really want to go, that's where you're going to go. So listen to what he says. He says, the way you ask the righteous person, that's the response you're going to get. So it's well known that you could ask Rabbi Yashiv a question and he would give two different answers depending on how the question was asked. Listen to what he says. He said, is this where all the bad ideas or counsels you get from a Rav, a Rebbe, a Rebbe, he imagines that from Hashem, or the righteous person, they told me to do this. Everything is from you. You're hearing what you're hearing. You're asking what you're asking. So he says someone really wants to have compassion on themselves. A person has to really beseech mercy from Hashem and from the true righteous person. They should really pay attention, truthfully, what's happening to you. That you should really be successful because they're only hearing what you're projecting from your micro. They're only hearing what you're asking. Even when you ask the Shaila, you are the questioner. It's all coming down to you. And like we're saying, we are mirrors to each other. We show each other things we couldn't see on our own. That's what we all are to each other. I want to end with the thought. The Gemara Chulin Daf Mem Daled base that says, "Who's a Talmudic scholar?" So the Gemara says, "This is someone who could see a treifa animal for himself," meaning he's not afraid of saying that this is not kosher. I want to interpret the Gemara as Zeharoi treifa la'asma. If you could see something wrong in yourself, that's a person who's connected to themselves. That's the Talmud Chacham. Your perception of me is a reflection of you. My reaction to you is an awareness of me. That is this whole world. It's transactional analysis. Your response, and then this continues because your response is transactional, affects the whole system. And a quote that I say is, when your experience with another is frustrating, it's not them that's the challenge, but the part of you that is activated with that other person. So much to say, but the time is up. I want to, that shows that is over, but I want to do one more sharing of this. I want to show something else that really is just very poignant. Nothing's coming out? Oh, why not? Showing over here. Oh, sorry. I heard that people weren't seeing what I was showing. So actually, let me see if I could somehow get this. How could I get out? Oh, I want to show that clip. It was a really powerful clip. Share content screen. Maybe I can do it that way. Okay, I'll do it this way. Sorry about that. By the way, if anyone has to go, I also have to go really, but I just want to finish this idea. So, 1 second, start broadcast. 1 second. So I could do this. Is it on now? Thanks for telling me. Is the sound on also? Is the sound on? Okay. Where am I? Am I here? Oh, so, okay. Am I here? Okay, I don't see myself. Okay, so let me just title it together. I know I'm going over, so I apologize. I usually don't. it's a well-known phrase in trauma called "you can't heal what you can't feel." The first step in connecting to ourselves is to notice the hardwired decoy of shifting ourselves onto others. They're just reflecting what's inside over here. The you needs to show up if you want to enjoy the party. That starts with owning our own stuff, our inner selves, responsibility, as we'll talk about this in a later segment, to fulfill chayvasai ba'ilame, like we started this whole series. Your obligation in your world, you only live in your own world. Let's end with a takeaway. When you see something, ask yourself, what does that reflect in microcosm? What's the message for me? Where do I have that part? Psychologically, metaphysically, like the Kabbalists say, your child's behavior to you, and sometimes I think about this, something like the fuddle, that's Hashem, are you serious? Is like you to Hashem. The Kabbalim say this, I do. When your child is screaming at you, do you scream at Hashem? If your child is disconnected from you, are you disconnected from Hashem? So there's so many elements over here. It's so rich over here, like psychologically or even spiritually. But first, everyone and everything you experience is really yourself. It's all mirrors, especially a wife to a husband. It has a much deeper role of the mirror. So the same thing as a Rav. All the things we'll talk about in a later class that require kavod, it's the public external role that you have besides the internal personal role. But a Rav cannot be a mirror if his silver lining is chipped. Same thing as the wife. You don't have to create the connections, you just have to create the space for it. You just have to realize your space. That is the beginning of having your relationships and your relationship with Hashem and with the world. So I'll open it up if there's any points or questions. Chanamindi, you always go first as it's your class. So
I have no questions, but
I just want to point out that, wait, I'm sorry, I just forgot that related to the woman's question, the email that I was talking about. You could see the reflection of the answer I'm giving over here regarding, she's asking about being conscious of herself and her husband being disconnected. So I didn't talk about I did, but I didn't, about him being disconnected. On some level, it's a reflection to her what's really going on inside of ourselves. Now, the truth is, on some level, it's the other way around, because the wife is a reflection of the husband. So there's two different roles she's having. She's having her own personal reality in her relationship with her husband. And then there's also the deeper level, which is what is she mirroring back? Why is the husband not getting connected when he's seeing her? Which we'll talk about in the next class, probably that. So I just touched, as often I do, when people get frustrated. Why couldn't I answer all the questions? Because we're laying the groundwork. But I was just showing, in regards to that email, that if you're asking that question, just know first that you're really asking a question on yourself. When you think about the other person, there's something here of yourself that's being reflected by the other person. I was just showing there's everyone's individual relationship, and then there's a unique one, which is between the wife and the husband. Yeah, sorry, Chaim. Yeah, go.
No, I was just saying I have no questions. That's all.
Oh, okay. Does anybody have any points or questions or comments about these? Someone said, thank you for the homework. Yes, that was the homework. So, and I do this all the time. I mean, a lot of things I do. Not everyone's doing everything I do, but
what was the homework?
The homework was when you have an experience with another person, there's so many dimensions to do this. Like we spoke about, the class was really divided, showing how the microcosm, the projection, is really on spiritually, metaphysically, like you call it, and then on relationally. So you could do it either one, but like if you have an experience with another person or you're seeing something, it's like, what does this reflect about me? So depending on the person, depends how deep you are, depends on, you'll experience this in a different way. But essentially, like the Baal Shem Tov said, it's all about you. So what is it saying? What is it for you to experience that's reflecting about your own self? Or there's metaphysically, which is like, it's all about your relationship with Hashem. Why is this happening? But it's a reflection of your own self, not pointing fingers, lashon haring, or projecting or saying something negative about another person. It's telling you about yourself.
Zahava has a question.
Yeah, Zahava, go.
Hi. Good evening. Basically, I just want like some small pointer. Sorry to do this to you all the time. It just, because I think it just all obviously boils down to the relationship with yourself. But when you're really sometimes stuck in a rut with the relationship with yourself, like it's like you just want to escape it, you know? So like, what can I do just to cope with it until the groundwork is done being laid out?
So, good question. We spoke about this in the previous class, which we call Home Sweet Home was the class, which we said the first home that a person has is their own body. And really, the most core exercise a person could do to connect to themselves, that's something, there's many different dimensions, but I think somatically really is the first place to start, which is feel your own body. There's a lot of mindfulness or meditation or yoga that's related to that idea, but just doing a body scan, just breathing in, just noticing your own body is a good place to start of just inhabiting your body. Because that's really where the relationship with the self starts. It's just first come home. First come home. You know, we can't have a relationship if you're not home. You don't even live in the same house as me. Come home. That's where it starts.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't feel that really answers her question.
Okay, shoot.
I feel like you're just like throwing out a bone out there. It's like, oh, inhabit yourself. And I feel like she's looking for something more substantial than
So
that. Explain. You can explain why the meditation can help with something like that. Like meditation is a very like famous word that, you know, oh, meditate, feel, or like look inside yourself, don't blame the outside. Those sounds like just sayings and everyone's saying it. Explain to her why
okay, it's a good
that
question.
will help her get her through
if anyone,
while she's doing all the groundwork.
Very good. So I'm trying to remember what number class it was, but everyone could please, it's on YouTube and it's on Torah Anytime. Our previous classes, there was I think it was maybe class 5. I'm trying to remember the one that was called Home Sweet Home. That was the one that we went through at great length for an hour talking about the body, how to do it. We actually did an exercise in the class. So in case you really want actual exercise, we did in the class. It is an experiential idea. You're right. To just say, do a body scan, what does that mean? When you do it, when you do it, I have someone right now. The guy is so disconnected, and every time we spend 10 minutes doing a mindfulness exercise, and he's like, "Really? I mean, seriously?" I mean, it gives me this look like I'm some quack or something like that. I says, "Don't worry, trust the process." And I've done this with people time and time again. And when you do that, you suddenly start noticing some presence inside your own body. Because your consciousness is focused in your body. So instead of focusing outside, you want to start the relationship with the self. It's not a pill. It's not going to take away all the problems. There are other things that maybe are distress tolerance. That's a different.
I don't hear you.
Yeah, you went out.
Your voice, I don't hear you, Shlomie. It froze.
Oh, it froze? Well, I hear myself.
Now we hear you.
Oh, okay, fine. So basically, it's experiential. And when if the way I understood Zaba's question is she wants to start a relationship with herself when life is not whatever, this is the beginning. It might be a different, maybe she has a different question. Maybe the question is, well, how do I just stop the pain? But that's not what this class is for. That there's other things to do about that. If you want to start the process, this is where we start. Zahava, is that an answer to your question?
What's the next level?
Right. So I feel like that I definitely do stuff like that. And I definitely am very aware about, you know, meditation, but oftentimes I get very stressed out doing it. Like I'm not comfortable in my own body. I feel like this is exactly what I don't want to be doing. So like a lot of times if I do listen to a meditation or like a guided meditation, I'll fold laundry or do dishes or something else that like, so I'm not just.
So good. So great. So that's a great question. So essentially, many times I'm working with someone, I start what I think is ground zero, but I notice that I have to dig deeper down, like when you're building a foundation before I get to go. And she's like, why are we going backwards? I'm like, because we need to do more groundwork. So what that means to say is if you're not comfortable doing the inner work, it's because it's not safe. You have to first create that safety with the self. So yeah, I mean, we would be taking these classes further back. And we could, but I'm saying that I was starting on ground zero. Ground zero is the relationship with the body. Some people, everyone's coming where they're coming from. That's the whole idea of the self project. Everyone's coming from a different place. You might need to start at an earlier place. You might need to do safety work first. You can't do anything if you're not safe. I could have someone coming to my office for 3 months straight and we're not getting anywhere because they're not safe. They come for 6 months. They're not safe. You have to create safety. You're not safe with your body. That makes sense. It could make sense. The idea makes sense. Now, therefore, it's like, well, body, I don't feel comfortable. Okay, so then we have to do other work. We have to do safety work first.
So what's safety work?
Depends what's making them unsafe. This is specific work. This is, you know what I'm saying? It's like it depends when you go into a room of people. You know, you
in general, or for example, what would be safety work?
I'm saying, so what would be safety work?
An example of it.
An example of safety work. It's creating a safe place. So that could be literally. So let's say, for example, let's say the office space that the person's going to get help is something that like reminds them of a certain place, or you know the way things are set up reminds them of. So that's not safe for them. So being safe place would be, those elements would be non-triggering. You know.
What is safety work that you do with your clients, for example? What's an example that you've had with your clients of safety work?
So that could be in the real life environment, or it could be in the visualization of it, like create what's called creating a safe place, like to have in their head even a safe place. Some people have nowhere to go.
Safe place.
I'm talking about a safe place, for example, is like you sometimes you're in a difficult situation and it's a lot of abuse going on, whatever. So you need to create a safe place for yourself. You visualize. It could be somewhere in the Bahamas. It could be somewhere 30 leagues under the sea. It could be in outer space, but you have a place that you could go to. It could be your third grade Mora. It could be somewhere that you just feel safe. So there's many different levels how to do this, but you have to create a safe place. Yeah.
And then once you do create a safe place,
so then you already have what's called inner resources. There's external resources, the inner resources. Then you're a little bit more resourced. You can't do trauma work if you're not resourced. You're gonna buckle under that extra pressure that you're suddenly facing because you were running your whole life from yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, if no one has a question, I have a meeting.
Wait. 1 second. Someone asked before if you can explain when you said that you don't have to create the connection, but give space for it to happen.
Someone picked on that. I was like, I threw that in like as I was like trying to get out. We're gonna discuss that.
She wrote it then, but I'm only asking it now.
Right. So basically, what that means to say is say the words of the question again, so I'm answering it correctly because yeah.
1 second. You said that you don't have to create the connection, but give space for it to happen. If you can elaborate what that means.
So basically what that means to say is like, well, this was the theme we're speaking about tonight's class, and it's going to come up in later classes too. Essentially is that we're only experiencing ourselves. You have to create the space. Like therapists always are told that they have to create the space for the person. Well, what does that even mean? Like that's a word that's thrown out there. They create the space. What it means to say is, can you hold the other person? It's like noisabel chaverei. The objective is to create the space because you don't need your life, your destiny, your life, your relationships, they're all there. You just can't handle it. It's something about yourself. You want to create the space. That's why when we speak about the 4 sons at the Seder night, it says, it opens up with Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, and most people wonder, Baruch HaMakom, why is that by Dalit? HaTorah Dibur K'neged Dalit, 4 sons, Baruch HaMakom? Can you handle all these 4 sons? One's a tzaddik, one's a rasha, one's a tam, one's a sheni elisha. Create the space to hold the people in your life. It's about you. Create that space. That's why Hashem is called Mekayim Shel Olam. Hashem we call Hamakim Menachem Eslam. Hashem is called Mekayim because He creates the space for everyone. Can you create the space for the people in your life? That's all. You have to create the connection. They're there. It's all about your microcosm. You just be yourself. Create the space for them to be there. It's a deep idea, and I'm not saying so much, but that's the answer to the question. Okay, well, this was the longest class we ever did. Sorry to the women.
Okay, Esther, who asked the question, says thanks.
Okay,
For
very
answering
good.
them.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everyone for listening.
Shlomie. Sorry for I made you late.
Please, the selfprojectclass@gmail.com. If you have any questions, the selfprojectclass@gmail.com, and send the comments. Okay.
Thank you, Shlomie. Have a good night.
Good night.